Welcome, everyone, especially those of you in person, everyone in virtual land. It's my great honor and privilege to deliver the State of the APT Center address today. I always love this time of year because I get to brag about all the wonderful things that all you people are doing as if I had something to do with them. So I am I'll be apologetic right off the bat because I know I'm going to forget somebody. And if I do, my apologies. That's winners of the 3-minute thesis, Sylvie, other major awards. You know who you are, and you know that you're appreciated, and I'll just rely on V to remind me to get to them next year. But this is a celebration. It's a celebration for you and for us as a center, as a community. So I'll start by a little self-revelation here. I'm an old fart, and I like sitting around reminiscing. And I have a reputation of referring to things that no one else seems to remember. All right, popular culture, historical events, movies, cartoons, whatever. So we're going to start off with a little pop quiz here. Where were you in 1963? Do you know what that is? Remember? Was anyone alive when JFK was assassinated? Nobody. Nina, you don't have to raise your hand.
Hey, Dr. Hansen, this is John Kaplan. I wasn't even alive then.
All right, all right, Dr. Kaplan.
Almost.
I was in kindergarten, but we don't need to go there. All right. How about something a little more recent? The moon landing? Any hands? No? Anyone stay up late to watch it? Okay, that's not so bad, Holly. Can anyone tell me the name of the guy that had to circle the moon while the other two guys got to walk on the surface? You get a free square on your bingo card if you... No one remembers Michael Collins, right? He was a guy that made it happen. They never would have gotten back, right? What about this guy? Does he look familiar? Yeah? Those were the days, huh? When someone would resign because they were accused of committing a crime. Life was so much simpler back then. Into the 80s, what about this? Come on, someone must have seen okay, Janet, the Berlin Wall came down, and I would especially bet that the people, the East German guards on top of the wall, will never forget that day. And how about the early 2000s? Anybody over 24 years old? Yeah? Did you remember to turn off your computer? Did you remember how the world was going to end in Y2K? What about hanging chads? No one on the ops team knows what a hanging chad is. But I take some comfort in the fact that contested elections aren't anything new. So don't think what we've been going through this decade is anything special. All right? But everybody remembers this, right? Okay. You can clap, it's all right. The reason I go through that is because you will all, every one of you, remember where you were at the 2024 State of the APT Center address. Because, wait for it, I'm going to announce our brand new logo. What's the matter? Don't you like it? You don't want to stick it to the patriarchy? All right. What about Ronnenheimer? Can we go with Ronnenheimer instead? All right. So that's enough frivolity right now. Let's move on to some serious stuff. This is our mission and our vision as a center, and it shouldn't be far away from your minds. They're hanging all over our labs at the VA. We're here to advance technology along a translational pathway for disabled veterans and be a national leader and valued partner. And we are partners with these collaborating institutions and some others, including the PVA, the DAV, and the County Board of Veterans Disability Services. Our primary research areas are prosthetics and orthotics, which you see here, neural interfacing. This is one of Dustin Tyler's subjects. This is a neural probe with integrated microfluidics that Allison Hess is working on, made of a dynamic material. All innovations that came from the center. Health monitoring and maintenance. This is an example of the first in-human use of the urodynamics monitor. You can't see it because it's in the human, all right? It's a bladder pressure and volume sensor that alleviates the need for a catheter. And activity-based neurorehabilitation. This is Dr. Mark Walker's work, also some of our exercise work, our physiological monitoring, VR applications, things of that nature. So we kind of cluster together in these four broad families. And speaking of families, what we have here are our core investigators. So these are card-carrying people with the VA appointments, 24 of us, and really the heart and soul of the center. All right, now supporting these around this heart, this beating heart, are 29 associate investigators. I should say that these folks who are the core investigators are dedicated to the APT Center, don't have any other major affiliations with other centers of excellence, but everyone else that surrounds and supports us are either appointed at Case or University of Michigan or the Cleveland Clinic. They have other home bases, but are invaluable for us to do the kind of work that we do. And let's not forget the 34 pre-docs and 11 postdocs in the program, because they are the future. Now, across the board, all these folks, well, actually, the core folks have 70 independent projects. So you can divide 70 by 24 and see how many projects each of the core investigators has, right? And the total funding amounts to a 16-to-1 return on core center investment. So that for every dollar that we receive from the VA to fund our center, there's 16 more flowing in to our institution. All right, that's not too shabby. This is our leadership team. None of this should be a surprise to anybody. We have our senior management at the top, including an associate director for translation, that's John Baskin, capacity building, Jeff Capadona, clinical affairs, Clay Kelly, and Steve Majerus just took over for Dustin Tyler as our associate director for engineering. Steve used to be on our leadership council, which are, I guess, the voice of the PIs. So where senior management kind of sets strategy, leadership council advises us on tactics. People on the left are VA investigators. People on the right are treasured people in high places at Case. So Pedram and Chris also help provide input into our direction. And we just added 2 new members to this advisory group, Lisa Lombardo and Hamid Charkar. And you'll note it took 1 person to replace Dustin and 2 to replace Steve. So keep that in mind. Dustin, if you're listening, probably not. Okay. Stay quiet. Those are the people, that's the face of the center. These are the people behind the scenes that make everything happen, all right? The operation teams on the left, again, people you should know. If not, go and congratulate them. V. Hun in the center keeps all the top spinning in the same direction. You might have noticed we have an increasing social media presence. We're working with the medical center for that, and that's Emily Johnson's responsibility. And most of the pretty pictures you'll see, including Ronenheimer, Laura Hugdale was responsible for them. All our grants are on target because Martha Colbert does grants management. Rachel does a little bit of everything, and Matt's shown is purchasing and all other duties as assigned. We are adding someone to flesh this out. If we can get through VA purchase hiring, David Saw is going to be a translational specialist and an engineer, and he's going to help Dr. Baskin help move things along the translational pipeline. Our engineering team, I'm glad some of you are here today. Jeremy Dunning and John Schnellenberger are senior members of the group. But this engineering team is unique in that the center funds a chunk of their salaries and essentially looks to farm them out to individual projects and provides a ballast, a safe place for them to come back to the center when projects go away. So there's an institutional memory that's built into the engineering team, right? And that's really how our research moves forward. I want to say just a bit about the complementary programs. We have Dr. Emily Rosenthal, who's a tech transfer specialist here at the medical center, who we work closely with. Frank Zitko is from INET, the Innovators Network, and Stephanie Bailey is the Tech Transfer Assistance Program Manager. These are not technically part of the APT Center, but there is these porous boundaries, right? Will Rasper is paid jointly by the APT Center and the TTAP program. So he gets one check, but he has two sources of funding, right? And we expect people like Rachel and Mark to help Frank and investigators who apply to the INET program to help them realize their innovations. So this is an investment the center makes in these programs and vice versa. All right? So everybody's responsible for everything. This is what the center does more than anything else, okay? I used to think of the center as a catalyst, right? But it's not really a catalyst. It's a lubricant, all right? We don't inject energy into the system. That's what PIs are for. That's what senior staff are for, people with ideas. But we reduce friction more than we inject energy, right? And we do that in a couple of ways. As far as research goes, we have startup funds, right? We provide seed funding that are going to lead to individual grants and come back to the center with new programs. We can bridge investigators and key staff in between, during fallow periods in between grants. For project management, our engineers are trained in agile project management. Rachel, now an engineering team, is a UI, UX programming expert. We have design controls that should help solidify the documentation for any design project that's ongoing. In terms of regulatory affairs, we do provide a medical monitoring committee that is extremely valuable, and in fact, our friends at the FES Center have just taken this on as a model, and we're sharing the administrative costs of doing this. And as far as translation goes, people on our staff do assist investigators, interact with Emily and other people for invention disclosures and IP filings. We do opportunity analyses, which are market analyses basically, and veterans engagement panels. Think of them as focus groups to help do market discovery and identify if our research ideas are in line with real clinical need. And finally, that all-important back office operations branch that keeps the money flowing and tries to minimize, keep all the institutions happy that I mentioned on that second slide, and keep the communications and everyone happy. So, if you want to find out more about everything I went through on that last slide, tune in this coming Monday, April 1st, where the ops staff and the engineering teams will be presenting what it is they do and how you can take advantage of their services. All right, if you need the MS Teams link, just shoot one of us a note, and we'll be sure you get hooked up. I wanted to end that preamble with a plug for Lauren Hugdahl again. She recently made a new logo for the Motion Study Laboratory, which is there on the left, which is pretty cool. I think it captures the concept of motion, providing mobility, which leads to access, which then should lead to the empowerment of disabled vets. And don't forget the town hall on Monday. All right, she also put together our year at a glance. And this is the best way to summarize our progress. I won't say too much about the first 3 months because I cheated and talked about them at the beginning of last year. But just to note, Hamid Charkar and Gilles Pinot spoke at the Hospital for Special Surgery. Margot and Pedram were inducted into the senior level of the National Inventors Hall of Fame. And yeah, we were on 60 Minutes. I don't have to talk about that anymore. Last spring, we, Kath, Jeff, and Bill, you each got awards or moved up into the provost's office or onto the board of directors of the National Pressure Injury Advisory Panel, which is all good service-oriented things. First in human urodynamics monitor was published, and the undersecretary gave us a shout during the National Research Day festivities. So that's all pretty cool. Moving into the summer, James Sulzer, one of our associate investigators, gave the keynote address at the National Neurotrauma Society. We had a successful site visit for our center renewal. Evie Stavro Pedram again and Mike Suster received Innovators of the Year awards from CASE. And we exhibited at the APT Coalition and the head of the Cuyahoga. And finally, towards the end of the year, we had a couple licenses come out. We were published in Science Robotics. We had a new, very compelling video about our trunk program, the Dr. Ardu's program. Kath moved the needle on translation with one of the first translational rehab research awards. And yeah, Dustin's team made another trip to the White House. Just another day for the APT Center. So that's all I have to say. That was the whole year in review. So thanks for coming. Anybody win bingo? You want to keep playing? All right. So this is brass tacks. This is what it comes down to. It's all about the money, right? So in fiscal year 23, core center investigators only, so this is not counting people who aren't primarily affiliated with the center and a 5/8 VA employee, raised about almost $20 million of research funding. And you can see the lion's share of that is from the VA. Next biggest was from the NIH and then the DoD. But this includes about $1.7 million in new VA support that Allison Hess Dunning brought in, and about $4.6 million of new non-VA funds that Joe Potke brought in, $3.5 million from the NIH alone. So what that means is that overall, we're about $1.7 million over our performance in 2022. So congratulations to everybody for being successful. These are some of those new VA projects. I can't go into every project that everyone's doing. These are the new ones, just samples of the new ones. Kath's Translational Award is for her Exaflex concept, which is a flexible, occlusive electrotherapy device. Whether it's a bandage or a dressing is up to you. But this is going to help do things that you can't get from a merit award or any other funding to help prepare it for licensing or eventual translation. And Sandy Nat got approval for her Career Development Award to prevent injuries in people who use exoskeletons. In particular, when they're walking in their exoskeletons and come across a banana peel and happen to fall. No one talks about falls, right? No one in an exoskeleton ever slips or falls, right? At least not that they'll tell you about. What's the least energetically damaging way to fall if you're locked into an exoskeleton? This is the kind of question Sandy wants to answer, and how can we put someone in a configuration that'll minimize that impact? Examples of non-VA projects: Hamid got a new DoD award as PI to send our sensorized lower limb neuroprosthesis home with people with limb loss. So getting things out in the field. And Nathan Mikowski, this is kind of cheating. He got the notice of award early this year, and it won't be starting until September, but still important, a clinical trial award from the Spinal Cord Injury Research Program of the DoD to move our walking systems after spinal cord injury onto the network neuroprosthesis platform. So that includes a regulatory pathway, command and control issues, and outcome assessments. Now, when I put these slides together yesterday, I couldn't say anything about ARPA-H, but those of you who might have seen the Case Daily this morning, the embargo is off, okay? Oop. I thought, maybe this is not the one that I thought it did. Okay. Ozan Akas, who is not officially associated with the APT Center, led a multi-institutional effort to put together a massive ARPA-H proposal that is really science fiction. This is intended to scale up to harvest and proliferate cartilage cells with stem cells, expand autologous cell lines so the patient will give their own cells. Within weeks, they'll be embedded and integrated with the titanium knee joint, and then implanted in real live human people. So no more cows and pigs and things like that. And our part of this is just, Santa and I did the math, and it's single digits of a $20 million budget. Single digits, between 1% and 3% is the way we figured it. But they came to us to do the gait analysis of how well these things are going to work. And I just want to say, if you remember what I said about being a valued partner, this is the kind of thing that the VA is being recognized for, and the APT Center is being acknowledged as someone who has the credibility and the capability to help contribute to large projects like this. All right. Maybe next year I'll be able to put Ozan's face in a hexagon too, but we'll leave that up to him. If we look over time, we're, again, better than we were last year. We're better off than we ever were, right? We haven't cracked the $20 million. That's what I call the AUKUS barrier, right? Ozan has one ARPA-H project that is more than our center brings in altogether. That's not minimizing everything that we do. This is pretty good, but but it takes all of us to equal one ARPA-H project. Just keep that in perspective. All right, so next year, let's crack the AUKUS barrier, everybody. We've protected our intellectual properties. We've done that all along. These are patents that were just issued this past year. Kath is the overachiever with 3, and Steve, Dustin, and Chris Zorman have 2 each. So what's really important is that what we've done in the past has resulted in 2 new licenses that were just let recently. Splash-free hinged tub transfer chair for neurodivergent Ken, and a self-leveling walker for this action hero, okay? So you could say we're making life better for disabled veterans and disabled action figures. We've continued to publish in the best places, 86 peer-reviewed journal articles last year, which is up almost 40%, so keep it up, you know, get your light out from under a bushel, publish, publish, publish. This is the, in addition to the dollars, like Dr. Peachy always told me, grants are contracts to write papers, and it is the primary currency by which your productivity will be judged. But just look at this: Science, Robotics, Neurology, Nature Reviews, Journal of Urology. Cool stuff. We also been taking our show on the road and been engaged in outreach beyond just the academic places. We've gone out to meet veterans and clinicians where they are. This is just some of the places where we've attended or exhibited the APT Center booth at, including, you know, the White House again. So we are singing the praises of the VA and letting the world know what's going on here in good old Cleveland. One of those projects happens in the Motion Study Lab, and that is led by John McDaniel and Michael Fu and Lisa Lombardo. I also want to mention Eric Heidorn, who is one of our APT Center postdoctoral fellows. And for those of you who don't know, the APT Center can support a postdoctoral fellow, 1 a year, and also what we call a pre-CDA fellowship, which Sandy actually had for a little bit, and that's to get someone on the payroll while they write their CDA award so that they have a home base and a support system as they're ready to commit to make a career as a VA researcher in Cleveland. All right, but this is intended to come up with home-based therapies that will make exercise more fun, to exercise as gameplay, and actually to try to build participation and engage people in the community. This is a concept we're still trying to get the bugs out of. Every company we seem to work with goes out of business or finds something else to do, but there are riders, these avatars are from people across the country. They're not all in the basement of the VA. So the notion is we can hook people up with each other, get them motivated to ride, to have group rides, and even friendly competitions within themselves, maybe even with hand cycles instead of with stimulation-driven biking, and really make that a cohesive group that is self-sustaining. So that's the goal of that project. All right. And last time I mentioned that we had put some of this gear, this cycling and rowing exercise gear at other VAs. This year we're putting it across town at Metro Health. So the commute should be shorter, but Mike Fu is leading that effort with some support from the APT Center and the engineering team to get the sensorized trikes and rowing ergometers installed in the Metro Health Center for Rehab Research. All right, not only do we go out to these places, like I said, but people want to come to Cleveland because of us. All right, in 2023, we brought in 3 heavy hitters from around the country and internationally. I'm not going to try to pronounce their names. You know who they are. Nicole, Karanesh, and Brian. You should have seen their distinguished lectures, right? This year, we brought in Kip Ludwig from University of Wisconsin and Ravi Nadaraj from Stevens Institute of Technology. This is a program we have in collaboration with the Cleveland Clinic, with the Cleveland VA Medical Research and Education Foundation, helping us offset some of the costs of things we can't pay for with VA funds, with appropriated funds like food. And coming up in May, Smiling Joe Pancrazio will be here to deliver our distinguished lectureship. And if you don't know Joe, he spent a stint at the NIH as the director of the neuroprosthesis program, then at George Mason University, became chair there. He is provost or some other high up in the administration of University of Texas, Dallas now, and a valued collaborator with Andrew Schofstall and Jeff Capadona and a number of us. So I'm looking forward to hearing what Joe has to say about his journey. We have this Shark Tank, right? This startup fund program, which is actually kind of fun. We get one-page white papers. We have 6 of them. They go through an initial review. 6 of them give their pitches verbally to the group, and everybody votes on relevance to the veteran, potential for external funding, IP landscape. We have a series of criteria, and then we offer first, second, and third levels of initial support. Steve Majerus, SafeCath system, won first prize the last round, and you can see a urine collection system that senses volume and pressure and telemeters that automatically to do whatever you need to do with it, notify nursing station, or even maybe do reverse urodynamics as someone voids in the clinic before they pump fluid into the bladder. You can get an idea of the status of the bladder just by watching it empty. Janica Burr is working on a sensorized prosthetic liner, has hooked up with Hamid Charkar and Clay Kelly to get to work on this using some of the equipment that Kath Bogie brought into the center. And Kath herself, with Tyler Tevis, pitched and got funding to pursue a remote pH monitor. So turns out when you're in the hospital and you have a recalcitrant wound that's under vacuum, the pH is a leading indicator of infection, and the nurses have to go unscrew the thing, dip a pH strip in Exudite, and it's nasty. By building a pH monitor into the flow or into the collection vesicle, we can notify the nursing station immediately as to whether this wound is on the verge of being infected or not. All right, let me talk just briefly about some complementary programs. The Technology Transfer Assistance Program is funded by the Technology Transfer Program. I know that they're on the line here today. They've branded themselves the vehicle. I know the CLE stands for Cleveland. Something about health innovations for veterans. And that's the vehicle team. But the whole notion of vehicle and the technology assistance program, if you don't know, is to add value to VA-owned inventions. So everything they deal with has already been disclosed and protected, patented, but might not be enticing to someone to license, and they may just be artist conceptions or patent attorneys' sketches, right? The mission of Vehicle and the TTAP program is to produce works like prototypes and minimize development costs. So something that's close to being ready to license that a potential partner could come, acquire the design history, see physically how the device works, see the market research that backs it up, and take it from there. So if you haven't tapped into that, there's a process for getting into that. That is, Emily is one of the gatekeepers, Emily Rosenthal. And they get work from all over the VA, not just us, okay? 2 out of 9 prototypes they completed last year were from APT inventors. So that's not so bad, but I want to highlight the 7 others that came from across the country. So this is, again, people recognizing what we have to offer and us delivering, including that shower chair, I might add. That was the very first pre-TTAP program that was our test case from the technology transfer program. Frank led that, even though he was an INET person, but led the charge on building that out, and now it's licensed. It was iterated through TTAP, and a real success story. This is one that's just come up this year, which is a point-of-care vascular access monitoring device, basically an array of solid-state microphones to tell whether a blood vessel is occluded or the blood is flowing for people on dialysis. And if I recall correctly, Steve Majerus got initial startup funding from the Garverick, our internal seed funding program. Now it's protected, and the prototypes are being made, and maybe this will be in a dialysis unit near you or at another VA sometime soon. There's another one in the process, but I was advised not to talk about it because the patent is still in process. So maybe next year. Shifting gears to INET, the Innovators Network is essentially an education program to teach people how to innovate, how to design based on client needs, how to put the human at the center of the design process. It has 3 levels of support that, again, is competitive. Spark is user discovery and concept evaluation. These are some of the ideas that have come through that Spark, and that's a little bit of money, $10,000 or less, no salaries, and this comes from staff, students, not just PIs. Anyone can tap into this. And you get to follow what you think is a good idea. See if it works in the lab, all right? Rachel has 2 of them. I don't know how your bosses let you off of work to do this without compensation work here, and your nights and weekends, right? The next level up, the seed, is a proof of concept. So this is supposed to create a physical proof of concept device to test in our own medical center. Will Rasper is working with John Baskin on a guide screw device. For surgery, is also working on a combined hand-arm cycle so that when people's legs tire out, they can use their arms to propel as well as their legs and get home. Brain Petno is actually putting a motor on these things and having it sense when the user comes to a slight incline. and automatically give just enough motive power from the motor to climb that hill without taking over completely. And then once it gets back to level ground, the person pushes with their legs entirely. So it levels the world out. It's a pretty cool concept. And Tyler's actually got a seed funding to do, again, the user interface to that pH sensor. So the smartphone development. The capstone to the INET program is what's called the SPREAD project, and it's dissemination. And, yeah, you can do it once in your medical center. Will it travel? Lisa is implementing a ventilatory training program for spinal cord injury at Augusta and Milwaukee VAs. Mara Malinchek is taking a TriCane, which came out of, it was a student project, one of our APT Center graduate students, to help assist, give people stability as they go from sit to stand. And that tub transfer bench, even though it's licensed, is getting field tested at a number of VAs that kind of have first crack at seeing that thing for when it does come on the market. But new to this is something funded by our local VISN. So the local VISN said, no, this INET program in Cleveland is going gangbusters. What can we do locally to help continue to foster this innovation? So they are putting up money of their own for us to use locally. Anyone within our 3-state region can apply. And Dakota Noble got one of the first one of these to help move our ergometry-based rowing system onto the water and establish a Cleveland-based power rowing program. And there'll be more to come. Okay, I will say just a little bit about that. The VA purchased for us 2 adapted shells for sculling. The single is called the Independence, and the double is called the Lewin Moore, named after 2 longtime participants in our research program. And this is the head of the Cuyahoga at the lower right, and I guarantee you, maybe not by March next year, by September, we'll have disabled veterans on the water. Mark it off, Jeremy. You can mark that one off. Okay. I'd like to kind of bring things to a close with a shout out to what Allison and Jeff Capadona did last year, are doing now, and have done for the past couple of years, and that's really build the future of VA research. We started with a small program of 8 APT Summer Scholars, the Winco Summer Scholars Internship Program, entirely funded by core VA dollars, putting undergraduates in the laboratories of investigators, core VA investigators. That was expanded by a VA DEI Summer Research Program. This was a national competition for this research, or this funding program, and that essentially doubled the undergrads were able to take, which last year amounted to 2 women, 2 people with physical disabilities, 1 underrepresented or underprivileged backgrounds, and a 2nd annual summer symposium, which you kind of see some of the participants up here, and the APT Center and the Cleveland VA Medical Research and Education Foundation also contributes to helping house these people, helping sponsor the top 3 prize winners to go to the BMES conference. And I'll tell you, every one of these folks envisions themselves, or can imagine themselves as a VA researcher. Some say, now I want to be a prosthetist. Some say, I didn't know research happened in the VA. I'm going back to, St. Louis or Washington or Texas or wherever they're from, with a new concept of what's possible for disabled veterans. And Jeff actually had the idea of taking an undergraduate who went through this program, who qualified as an underrepresented minority, or if that's the right word, and organizing a pipeline. So he convinced us that the APT Center should help support a first-year student who represents diversity and inclusion, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. So if someone comes through this program and they get into graduate school at Case, the center helps offset their expenses. And then Jeff has agreed to pick them up on their second and third year on his NIH-funded training grant. So we have this pipeline now. We just exercised it for the first time last year, but we're going to keep doing this until we change the faces of scientists and provide examples for people to emulate. This year, I think if Allison didn't have to come today, she'd still be matching people. I don't know if that's quite done yet, but believe me, almost all 16 undergraduates are matched with mentors. We went beyond the usual suspects and went out, engaged HBCUs and veteran student associations. We had 60% more applicants than last year because of this. Again, almost 2/3 female and one veteran, again, and hitting our mission for underrepresented backgrounds. This is where everyone in the program came from this year, all the applicants, or is it? It might just be where all the teams in the NCAA men's tournament come from. You'll never know. Finally, coming up as a sneak preview of upcoming events, Janet came to us and said, you have students at the VA, I have students in material science, other people have students in neural engineering. We never see each other. We're supposed to be a community. Why don't we inspire and connect with each other at that level? Let's get undergraduate and graduate students together to see what their compatriots are doing and maybe to educate their PIs on what other people are doing across the APT Center. So this is a unabashed plug for the first annual. I hope it's annual. I hope this is a huge success on May 30th, the Spring Icon event in the Veal Ballroom. Get your abstracts in by Monday. If not, you'll have to buy Janet lunch for a month to get an extension or something like that. Only 150 words, and come and be part of the family. You might notice this is actually the day before our next distinguished lectureship, so the keynote speaker is also Smiling Joe Pancrazio, so he's doing double duty. There will be career development workshops, lots of advice for how to chart your path as a scientist inside the VA or not, and no one better than Joe to give the benefits of his experiences. Finally, and I mean that, I kind of glossed over the fact that we had a successful site visit last July. I prematurely said we were renewed last March, but we had one last hoop to jump through of the gauntlet was a site visit. And happy to report now that it's official, that the APT Center is funded through 2030. So beginning January of 2025 through 2030, the center is going to continue to be in existence and beyond, I hope. So I'd like to say we're just getting started. I think, there's forming, storming, norming, and performing, the 4 stages of an organization. I think we're constantly reforming, which is one of our strengths, and hope to keep performing well beyond 2030. I will say, though, that one thing was missing from the outcome of the site visit, and that was a big freaking check. I always wanted a big cardboard check. No, that is not my retirement fund. That's the APT Center funding for the next 5 years. And I'll draw your attention to the memo that Uncle and/or Aunt Sam wrote, is that this is a good investment in the creation and translation of innovations to improve the lives of veterans' health, to improve veterans' health and their daily function. All right, so they can write better than I can talk. All right, so I'll put the question back to you. What is the state of the APT Center? I'd like to think you agree that we're stronger than ever. And in addition to that, we're better together. So thanks for all your hard work. And nobody at bingo? Oh, you're supposed to shout it out. We don't have 5 prizes. All right. Everybody go to V and he'll check your scores. And we'll have to see, he'll take your names too. We'll have to see what we can do for everybody. All right, well, thanks for your attention. And enjoy the rest of the day.